morning, everyone. Starting the Ezekiel's Art Podcast, episode 15. Having some technical problems, but we'll see if we can figure that out.
So I'm Steffany Latronica. I am originally from Spokane, Washington, born and raised. I'm pretty average person. I have a full-time job, but I am fascinated with art.
So what kind of art do you paint?
I paint people, I paint nature, just anything that inspires like capturing a moment. Sometimes they're rare moments and sometimes they're routine and normal that maybe people might not take notice of.
What's your favorite or preferred subject to paint?
Oh God, nature, I would say. I do a really good variety of things, but again, it's like with people, it's capturing a moment a lot of times. But with nature, it's like I'm really fascinated with the concept of dark and light. So the drama between the two is kind of what I look for across the board.
So why don't you take me through kind of your art journey to becoming an artist? How did that happen?
Oh, goodness. Well, I've been drawing since I could pick up a pencil. So I started way back as a child, but as I grew up, I saw my uncle, he was a professional artist, and I saw the struggle. And my parents were musicians too, so they're artists in a different sort. But it was, I don't know, I kind of shied away from it just because it didn't seem like a stable life for me. So I kind of did the normal, just the daily grind kind of stuff. You know what I mean? The survival and all that kind of stuff. And then, but I always would draw on the side. Like my parents, like every Christmas Eve, they had a party, and I would paint, or I would draw something that everybody would sign.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah. So, but I always kept it. It's always been, something that's less a hobby, but just something that I have kind of it was a hidden passion kind of thing. So.
And when did painting start taking off for you? If I remember correctly, when we were talking, it was a few years ago.
Yeah, well, I had taken so do you want the long version or the short version?
Long version, always the long version.
So really what it began was many years ago, I was kind of provoked to jealousy in a good way. There was an art prodigy she was a 9-year-old girl. Her name is Akiana Kramerek, and she was incredible. She was just, you should look up some of her work. It's just incredible. And so it got me to thinking, God, I have this talent, but I'm not doing anything with it. And so I went to school and I took a few, I took some courses, you know what I mean, towards getting my art degree. I wasn't able to finish it, but so I was doing work back then, and then I just went through some tough times in life, you know what I mean, and I had to hang it up, and I took like a good, 12-year hiatus, and then it was just a couple of years ago that the right person said the right thing to me, and it got me going again, and here I am 2 years later.
That's how I've noticed about a lot of artists. They'll go on a period of like they get really into art, and then there's like this lull for a bit where like they try to stray away into like other parts of life, but then art always just comes right back into their life and flowers in a whole new way.
Yeah, definitely. Like even when you're not doing art, you're still observing like an artist. You know what I mean? Like the thing that fascinates me the most, like, is colors. And
yes,
that's why I love spring and summer, is because spring and summer, to me, there's such a big variety of colors, and it's not all just like bright colors and things like that, but there's experiences and fragrances that you can almost capture in your painting. So
Hmm.
that's what I like to do.
Do you do open air painting, or do you prefer to work in your studio?
I'm not an open air painter, no. I really haven't tried that actually. I did it kind of once, but it was like live around people. But no, I don't do that. I think it's the setup and the materials. I don't really have a good setup for outside, but I think I would be battling the elements, and that would just wouldn't work for me. I like the studio.
I feel that as well. It's a little bit easier when you can control the lighting constantly and not have just like random stuff happening all around you.
Wind blowing, things sticking to the paint, you know what I mean? That
Oh
kind
my
of,
God.
yeah. So
So when it
I
comes
guess
to the influences of your art, like what do you derive your inspiration from?
again, it would be life and nature. For me, I observe life and I look at the beauty in it, like joy and things that bring, I would say, inspiration maybe to others, or make you look at something differently, or inspiring maybe a feeling. So yeah, I mean, that's where I gather most of it. But a lot of it is it's really what how I observe the world around me. Um,
Hmm.
I really enjoy watching life take place, and sometimes that's nature, and sometimes that's people. But the world is just an amazing place.
So how do I phrase this? It's taking me a minute. Sorry, still a little tired. When you're looking at a specific scene and you're like, I want to paint this, what is it that captures your eye? I know you're talking about observing life, but how has that influenced how you see just normal life when you're looking around? Is there certain things that catch your eyes like, oh, this would be a great painting?
Oh yeah, again, it's that drama between light and dark. Um, there's like it can be philosophical in a way too, because like you know, good and evil, and you know, truth and lies. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Kind of, but it's really that dark that drama between the light and the dark. Like when, like I try to in my work, I try to exaggerate the darks and I exaggerate the lights so that there's this contrast between them. And so I look for that contrast because I believe that they're parts of each other. And
Hmm.
so people look at those differences as negative, and I don't look at it that way. I look at it as it's positive. Things complement each other.
Yes, agreed. So how does your philosophy, or kind of like how you look at the world, how does that influence what you're trying to create? Like I know you talk about a lot of the kind of influence, the contrast of light and dark, but is there like a specific message that you're trying to get through with that kind of play of elements?
Yes, I think that more I'm looking for um, people to see the light. I want, like, there's so much negativity in the world. There's so much division, and I want people to be able to see beauty in life. That even from those dark places, even from those places that maybe we don't want to look at, that there can be beauty and treasure that comes out of that. So
Hmm.
that's kind of what I hope some of my message is through whatever I paint.
So for artists, is there anyone that you particularly like their style or you derive an influence from, or is it more like you kind of came up with your own style by just practice?
I think your own style kind of comes through regardless. But yeah, there are influences. Um, one of the ones like with my recent drawings that I did that were figure drawings, the style is somewhat derived from Kathy Kovacs. She's a German painter but artist, and I used to in my figure drawing class, we kind of studied a few artists, and she was one that I really resonated with because I liked how loose her drawings were, but she was showing like that other side of life that wasn't so pretty all the time. She was like talking about like the effects of like hunger and poverty and those kinds of things. But a painter that I really like, she's a modern painter now. She's Talia Stanton. She is incredible. Like I love everything that she puts out because she does the same kind of thing. I've really drawn inspiration from her a lot because she just celebrates life. She celebrates, like, she is a joyful person, and it comes out in her paintings. And her paintings are mixed media, and there's usually some type of figure, you know, with the face, but there's always this abstract stuff that's coming out of it. And so it's just, I don't know, it's beautiful. So those are the couple of people that I have drawn some influence from.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to look them up.
Yeah.
Now, do you work in oils or acrylics?
I work in acrylic. I absolutely love oils, but I cannot deal with the materials. I'm not patient enough to let it dry. It takes too long to dry for me. But I really, really admire people that can do oils. But yeah, acrylic is my medium.
Is there anything that you kind of discovered with working with acrylics along the way, that like tips that made it just so much easier, or mistakes that you made before you're like, oh, this is something I shouldn't do?
Well, I used to think that it was cheating to not just dilute paint and do a sketch to block in your shapes and all of that. I've found that you can take a charcoal or a pencil or something like that and block those in a little more detailed. That was one that I learned just not very long ago, actually, probably in the last 6 months. But it's also like the thickness, like painting with a knife. I'm exploring that right now.
Me too.
I don't think I'm very good at it yet, but I love like laying down just a lot of paint, because I'm one that, you know, you just put a little tiny little dot of paint and you use it all. So, yeah.
So when you started out painting, what did you have any specific mission of like, oh, I want to do this style, and did it kind of split off from there, or do you kind of wanted to explore every type when you were first starting?
No, I don't think so I started looking at some of the abstracts because it's completely opposite of what I do. And it's all about shapes and colors and feelings and you know, different things, different kinds of compositions to lead the eye and stuff. And so I'm very intrigued by that. I do like things that are not like myself. So I've tried a couple of those, and there's only one that was kind of somewhat successful. But I really appreciate that. Yeah, that's.
So we talked earlier, I believe yesterday, about different books and things. Has literature influenced your subject matter at all?
I would say yes, absolutely. Again, you know, light and dark. There's books that I read that I really enjoy imagery a lot, where it's like painting with words.
Mm-hmm.
And especially ones that do describe creation, that describe nature and the nature of people, but really imagery is a big thing. Like when somebody is describing what a waterfall looks like and how the water cascades down and then it goes down into a stream, and you know what I mean, just following it. When I can follow that in my mind, it really I want to be able to put that on canvas or on paper.
So like, who are some of your favorite poets?
Poets. So I don't read a lot of poetry. I have God, what is her name? I can't think of her name. Her first name was Hannah, but it's there was a book called Hind's Feet on High Places, and the imagery in that one is so incredibly beautiful.
Yes.
The way they describe, because it's not just describing what is seen, but it's like the spirit within the nature. So yeah, she's one that she can really paint with words. And another one is William Paul Young. A lot of people know his book, The Shack, and that's a good book. But the other one that I really have enjoyed, and I haven't completely finished reading, but it's called Eve, and that one again has some incredible imagery, and some of it's not like necessarily real. Some of it's like surreal stuff, but just I can see it in my mind's eye, and it makes me want to paint. So.
And so if you could describe like your art style in one basic term that kind of overreaches it, what would you say it is?
Oh God, I wish you would have asked me that earlier. I don't know what you would say. I just hope that, because I don't know really what style I paint, to be honest. I'm not super educated in those kind of terms. Sometimes I like to do expressionist things, but for the most part, I mean, I just paint from the heart. That's all I can say.
So your art's like an expression of yourself rather than trying to emulate any particular mode of painting.
Most of the time, I think it's definitely I express how I feel, how I see the world, or maybe how I want to see the world.
And yeah, going back to the observer thing like we were talking about earlier, have you noticed a change in how you view the world after getting back into painting and kind of doing it not necessarily full time, but way more than you used to? Has that changed your outlook?
By painting more?
Yeah.
I think so. I think I became more in tune with what I'm seeing around me. There are things that I'd love to fix. I know that you can't fix people, and you want to. I just want to be a good influence as much as I can around me. But yeah, I hope that I've just taken a deeper look, I guess. I look at things a little bit longer, a little bit deeper than maybe I did before. I still let things kind of pass by sometimes, but I think that's, you know, my humanity, where sometimes you don't notice things that are really truly important, but it gets you back there, you know what I mean? Sometimes oh wait, I need to slow down a little bit and pay attention, you know.
So are you a visual thinker?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I talk to a lot of people, and I've noticed that not everyone's a visual thinker. So like now I ask people that a lot, because like I'm trying to figure out, like, it's so interesting to see the difference of how people express themselves by their mode of how they formulate thoughts. So when you come up with a painting, do you already have it set in your mind of what you want to paint, or does it kind of emerge as you are painting it?
There's both, and I think that that's where artists can get really frustrated at. Some artists can. I've heard it over and over, because you see it in your mind, and but when it comes out on the canvas, it looks different than what's in your mind. I know my dad, as a songwriter, struggled with that too, where he heard it in his soul. It came out a little bit different, and what I've learned, and it was a Bob Ross thing about happy accidents. It's okay. Like, if it doesn't look exactly the way that you thought it would, or what was in your mind, what came out is what was expressed. So I've come to terms with that and am at peace with that most of the time. Sometimes it really frustrates me and it gets me upset, but for the most part, I've learned to accept that it doesn't always come out the way that you thought, but sometimes it comes out way better.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Those are the wins, you know?
So when you're creating a new piece and you're trying to figure out the composition, do you use photographs as references?
Yes, I do use a lot of photograph references. Sometimes it's just my interpretation of that. Sometimes it's taking different pieces to either convey the concept, or just putting together the elements that I wanted in that composition.
And do you try to stay true to the color, or do you kind of experiment with, like, hey, instead of this being like, a red apple, I'm going to color it blue and then have the contrast? Or do you work in that kind of mode?
Not as often. I might change the color palette just a little bit. But again, a lot of times when I do that, I am exaggerating the lights and the darks. So something that might have been a lot lighter. Like recently I did a painting that was of a rainbow, and it was where the light was just hitting that one part. The rest was pretty dark, but the light was hitting that one little cloud, and then there, the rainbow coming through it. And my reference photo with that, the clouds were a lot lighter, the landscape was a lot lighter. The rainbow wasn't quite as brilliant. So those kinds of things. And I changed the colors a little bit.
So you kind of make adjustments as you're going to make the painting pop, rather than trying to be true to the photograph, which is only kind of its own representation as well.
Yes. And yes and no. I mean, sometimes I want it to look just like that, but for the most part, yeah, I try to put my own little spin in there, definitely.
So when it comes to like blending, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
When it comes to blending acrylics, what's something that you find really helps? Because it frustrates me a lot.
Oh, okay. Depends on what kind of painting you're doing, but like if you're painting with thicker paint, you know what I mean, overlapping them while they're wet, like, and using like a thicker amount, and then also blending, like if it's a more dry, you know what I mean, you just kind of adding a little bit of water. Yeah, blending can be, I mean, it can be its own challenge. I don't think that we ever get over that as painters. Because I mean, blending is just, some people are really excellent at it though. But I'm not the type of person to like, when I mix my colors, I don't mix them like with a knife most of the time, unless it's like in bulk. Like if I'm making black, then, and I'm really just trying to cover, the canvas or whatever, I mix it with my brush, and I allow those little streaks of whatever to get in there. And sometimes that messes things up in such a good way. That's perfect. of, yeah, that's one of my, I'd say one of my signature things that I do.
So you talked about how you're starting to do more blocking for your paintings beforehand. Do you do a pencil drawing and then block it out with paint, or do you just straight up go with the paint first to block out shapes?
Well, lately it just depends on like how detailed, like, let's see, the subject matter is. Like this one that I'm doing with a bee, I penciled in the bee part, you know what I mean? The parts that need to be more detailed, that's the part that I'll pencil in. And maybe certain shapes of shadows and stuff, I'll pencil those in, but then I just block color in for the most part and just avoid those smaller areas.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try that soon because like I've been trying to get better at blocking in the paint, but I come from years of just only drawing with mechanical pencils, black and white. I didn't get into color till 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
So like I had colored pencils as a kid, and I have like a few drawings, but 99% of what I draw, if you look through all my books, it's only going to be black and white. So this whole concept of not just drawing every individual line and just putting down shapes of color is just such a switch for me. And so it's like I'm trying to get as much knowledge as I can from other people because it's such a weird concept. It's like, no, instead of drawing what you see, put down the shading and just put one color down and then go over that. I'm like, what? What? How am I supposed to do this? Especially when it, like, as I was talking about earlier, it dries so quickly that it frustrates me. That's why I've been talking to someone recently about trying oil.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't want to have to wait weeks on end for this to dry, man. I don't have that much space around
I
here.
know. You have to have like 5 different paintings going at once if you're an oil artist and you're like me, that's like kind of impatient waiting for it to dry. Yeah. So, and I don't have the space for that either. My studio is rather small.
So has your spiritual journey influenced your art?
I'd say, yeah, absolutely. I think that some of the things that I paint are kind of spiritual concepts. Like the recent one that I did with the butterfly, and it was it's hanging off of a nerve cells, like brain cells. And really, that was about changing your mindset and transforming your mind. That it's possible to establish new neural pathways to think differently. And I think that we should allow people. We should listen to people and allow us to change our mind, because I think that's a huge problem today, is that people don't want to change their mind. They think that they're right all the time, and you know what? We're not always right. So yes, my spiritual journey definitely is evident in my paintings for sure.
So your work is kind of is it always symbolic, or do you do some that are just straight up, I just want to paint this beautiful landscape type thing?
They're not always spiritual or some type of spiritual message or anything like that. Sometimes it is just for beauty's sake. I like the 2 things that are most important to me up to this point in my life are truth and love. And if I can convey those in some way through my paintings, whether it's just beauty, you know what I mean? Or because I believe beauty is essential to life. And if you disagree, I mean, maybe you've never been depressed.
For real.
So, and how something beautiful can brighten your day.
Mm-hmm. So what about art and painting, what brings that urge to create for you?
When I see something like when something brings me joy or happiness, it makes me want to paint. Like spring coming on, like we're almost at that cusp, seeing new life emerge. it just gets me excited. I guess the things that that are positive, that they just excite me, and it makes me want to paint. I want that to flow. I'm not as much one of those painters that likes to paint when I'm upset or feeling negative. Um, there's been one time that I released, and actually that was my abstract painting. But for the most part, I don't really feel very inspired to paint when I'm feeling negative. So
your inspiration is kind of like the joy of life and being able to appreciate the moment that we're living in.
yes, definitely.
So when you're coming up with the idea of it, do you always think of like certain, like beforehand you already have it like painted in your mind, like, oh, I'll do this there, I'll do this there, I'll use this technique? Or you kind of just have the idea in your head and then just kind of let yourself flow as you're going through it? Like, do you have a concrete idea of like it has to look like this, or just general?
It depends on the painting. I can have both of those attitudes. There's some that it's definitely got to be this. This is what I want. And there's other things that I just kind of let it flow as it goes. And again, those happy accidents, those things that you didn't quite expect. Maybe a color didn't get blended well enough, or your color didn't come out exactly the way that it should. I like going with those things because I feel like that's kind of where you're flowing. And so I kind of trust myself to be able to hit that. Sometimes there's blocks and I can't get through. There's definitely, I have artist block sometimes. There's writer's block out there. There's artist block too. Or I just, every time that I try to create something, it just doesn't happen. And I think that maybe those are the times too where I'm wanting something to be definite and concrete. And I have to be able to switch to just let it flow. So yeah, it just depends on the painting though. Definitely. That's why I would say commissions can be a challenge, because there is definites there that you're wanting to hit, and your client wants to hit too. So those can be a little bit frustrating sometimes.
I can totally understand that, man. It is, as my dad used to tell me, there's a famous quote that I can't remember who said it originally, but he would say, the definition of a portrait is, there's something wrong with the nose. Just because every single time that you paint someone, like especially if they take their photograph and then they give it to you, like, please paint this. If you get it exact, usually they're kind of like, I don't look like that. And then because like it's such a reflection of themselves, that do you make adjustments to make things idealized, kind of like in proportions, or do you try to go from the exact of what's there in the photograph?
I try to go as realistic as I can, and my style just comes out anyways. But if I'm doing a portrait, I really don't do many portraits. But when I'm doing a portrait, there's a couple of elements that I really try to hit right, that I put a little more effort into, and that would be like the eyes. I feel like if the eyes are wrong, like the whole thing's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And also like the mouth. I don't know why, but like the mouth, but especially the eyes, like I really try to hit that right on the head. So otherwise, because I mean, I've tried to do portraits of my kids, and I can paint my sons really well, but I can't paint my daughters, and for some reason. And it's really, a lot of it's about the eyes with my daughters and their mouth. It just doesn't look like them, but my sons, it does. It's strange. I think I just don't want to mess up their beauty. You know what I mean?
I feel that. So do you do practice sketching or painting before you, or as an exercise before you go on to so I'm like, yes, this is my composition, this is what I want to do, but I'm going to practice these exercises. Do you have anything like that?
Oh God, my art teachers would kill me, but not as much. I do that sometimes, like especially when I'm trying to figure out like one that's more of a concept or one that I have to choose different reference photos, different elements of it, and I'm creating a composition from that. Then those ones, you know, I might do thumbnails for, thumbnails is kind of my thing. And then there's other things where it's like I'm exploring colors, and so I'll paint sketch, you know, in my sketchbook, that kind of thing. So like there's one that I'm going to be doing some bee paintings, and I did like, I don't know, month and a half ago, I did one in my sketchbook, just of a bee, but it was kind of a strange background and stuff because I was playing with stencils and stuff. But yeah, so that's really not part of my process for the most part. It's just kind of I got it in here and then I put it on the canvas.
So what painting are you most proud of and why?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I mean, this, I'd say in recent, the one that I think that it resonated with me and other people the most was, I called it Emerge, and it's a painting of a meadow at dawn. And what that was is it was part of a series of paintings that I've done here. The other one's in the background there, but it was about, again, changing the mindset, and it was like a butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. But this was the odd part of the series. It wasn't showing the butterfly. It was showing what it sees when it emerges from its chrysalis. The first thing.
I love that.
And so, and people for some reason have really gravitated to that one. And I do too. I sold that one. And I sold it for cheaper than I should have. But it was, I love that one because there's little gold specks in it. And it's one I'd like to have on my wall to look at, you know what I mean? Because it puts you in that mood where you're looking at everything brand new with awe and wonder. And just you can almost hear the buzzing of bees, and you can, you know, just that first light. Beautiful. Loved it.
So what is going through your mind while you're painting? I've noticed a lot of times while I'm painting, I get in kind of a meditative mood, and you get into kind of this focus, but then there's always this train of thought that kind of goes through it. Are you focused on the painting, like, in your thoughts, or is there other stuff kind of like going through it? You know, that voice that you always have in your head that's, you know, kind of always chattering.
No, because I mostly don't paint in silence. I'm usually listening to music of some sort. I'm a spiritual person, so you know, sometimes I'll listen to worship music. Sometimes I'm listening to things that absolutely make me happy. Every once in a while I'll hear, it'll be something that, you know, maybe inspirational, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I'm kind of listening to music, and then it makes me think of, you know, life and how I can do things better, or how I can, you know, how this person is feeling or whatever. So yeah, I'm not nitpicking at my work as much as I'm just trying to let life flow through me.
Okay, I see what you mean. That's pretty awesome. For me, it's a little frustrating at times when, like, I'll crank up the music and I'll still be painting, and then I just can't focus. And those are the times that I find I have my biggest creative block. Is there anything that you like to do? Like when you have a creative block, is there anything that you find helps break you out of that?
not painting. Sometimes, really, I mean, for the most part, like, because I had some of that, especially this winter, because winter's a tough time for me because I just don't enjoy being cold and I don't enjoy the lack of color outside. And but sometimes I just take a break, you know what I mean? I eat something, or I might watch a movie and just get my mind off it. But if I'm pushing through, a lot of times it's just like maybe changing my music, or um, changing, sometimes it's changing the painting. Like, okay, I need to put this one aside for now, and then just either start something fresh or pick something up that I didn't finish before. And that usually helps.
Yeah, I've done that a few times myself. It's great because it's like a way of procrastinating, but also still getting things done
Yeah.
at the same time. It's like, I'm not working with this right now, but I can work on this while I'm not working on that. So that way I'm always procrastinating things, but always getting things done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and what's funny about that is like you might have a few of them laying around and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden you finish them, bam, bam, bam. You've got 3 paintings. All of a sudden, people are like, "Man, you've been painting your heart out," and be like, "Yep, I did."
For real.
Didn't know that they were like ones that were almost done. They just took a little more effort when you pick them back up.
Does painting give you the sense of like getting your batteries recharged?
Oh yeah, like I feel like when I paint, it's like I'm filling up to here, and then I gotta go down there and express it. Like I gotta get it out. It's actually it's like a pouring out for me because I get full, full, full. Like I get inspired all the time while I'm at work, and I'm either reading, or you know what I mean, because in between patients and stuff like that, I get to read a lot, and then I look at certain things like, oh well, I need to get some reference photos for my bee paintings, and so I'm looking for that, and I'm just clicking away, and then I'm like, by the time I get home, I'm like up to here in inspiration, and I'm like, God, I cook dinner really fast for the son, and then get down to my studio before I lose it. Which I don't lose it very easily, but if you let things distract you, you will.
Man, I have found that so easily in my own life, especially like I'm like, okay, so I need to paint, but first I need to pick some things up. And then I start, cleaning up a little bit, kind of get my space. I'm like, oh, I forgot I had this. Then I sit down and I start doing something else, and I pick up my phone. I'm like, wait, I was gonna freaking paint.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, life, you have to learn to like be disciplined to set certain things aside, you know what I mean, when you are intentional about getting some work done, you know what I mean? Because there's always more things that you can do around the house and stuff that, that you can do later, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
You just gotta kind of ignore that sometimes, and that takes discipline for your craft, you know what I mean? Maybe not so much the housekeeping part.
So do you go anywhere to kind of build motivation? Is there anything, activity that you like to do that really just makes you feel fully charged and ready to go?
Ooh, again, spring and summer months, I mean, are huge for that for me. I like to garden. Um, I like, especially the planting part. This is the funny part about me. Like, a lot of girls don't like to get their hands dirty. Oh my God, like digging in the dirt, you know what I mean, and preparing the soil and stuff like that. I love the time of planting, and then nurturing that garden to the fruit. Um, that's something I derive a lot of inspiration from that. I like going to um, on hikes and in beautiful places like Manitou Park, where you know what I mean. In midsummer, if you go down like at the Duncan Gardens, there's all these flowers that they plant there, and sometimes they're kind of like, they look like kind of wildflowers, I think. And I just one morning, like I went down there and I just sat, and nobody was really there, and I was watching, and then you start listening, and then you hear like bees buzzing, and then you see butterflies, and then out of nowhere like quails come out, and then you see like a little bunny over there, and like just observing life. Again, I guess I sound like a broken record, but that's really where I get it from. But gardening is one that it does too, because it's just helping life, you know.
I like that. Yeah.
So yeah.
So when you do animal paintings, what do you really try to capture in it? Like, are you trying to get the gist of the animal, or are you trying to get it to look more like the picture, or are you trying to go for more of a general kind of? Are you? Now let me see if I can rephrase the question. Are you trying to go for more of an abstract feel of the animal, or do you prefer to go realism most of the time?
I think I like to go realistic, um, just with a little bit of, stylized a little bit. Trying to think, because I don't do a lot of animal. I do like, I've done hummingbirds and insects, that kind of thing. I don't really do like dogs and cats and stuff like that. I've done a horse before because my daughter used to love horses, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I try to capture the essence of the animal in action. I really love that. Like with the hummingbirds, it's like there's typical positions that they have, but like one of the ones that I did where it was kind of it was like it was getting nectar from a flower, and the position that it was in it was kind of backing away, and so its back was all arched and stuff like that. So I like to show like the action a lot. Insects, sometimes it's just their pose, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
butterfly, you know what I mean? It's but I do like action, yeah.
So you like kind of presenting things as dynamic. Okay. See, for me, it's really hard to capture, and I need to look at a lot more of your paintings because I'm trying to get that feel as well for my own work. Is there's something happening here rather than just a still life? As much as I love painting still lifes, I want to feel like there's a narrative, like there's a story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you go for kind of more dynamic poses to achieve that?
Yes, definitely. Like again, the hummingbirds were like that. They're both in action. Seeing the wings kind of being blurs, you know what I mean, because they're fluttering. The peacocks that I did, those ones were more like still life, and I loved that for certain like color aspects, but the pose, not as much. You know what I mean? I'd much rather have the dynamic, like you said, of having the action, capturing moments. You know what I mean? So
I love that concept of you're trying to kind of capture the drama of life
mm-hmm.
as it's happening in front of you and then solidify it into one kind of slice of time.
Yeah, definitely.
Where did that idea come from?
I think it's just like, you remember when you asked me, like coming back to art, what's inspired that? It's taking that deeper look. You know what I mean? Or the things that we might pass by as ordinary in life, there's extraordinary in the ordinary. You know what I mean? And so I want people to be able to see that art does exactly that. Is even if it's a still life or whatever, you're looking at somebody else's perspective of how they see their world, and you're making them look at something differently. I think that's one of the whole concepts of art is to capture something and making people look at it differently. Even if you're abstract, it's like taking that color or that shape or that emotion that you feel when you look at it, and you're looking at the world differently than you did before. You're taking a step back and looking at it like that. I love that.
I love that too. That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
So, for our final question, and I'm going to pose a really hard one to you.
Uh-oh.
What is art to you? What makes something art?
Oh. I think I almost explained that already. I feel like it's taking something and creating something and making the viewer look at something differently in your world. And it doesn't have to be something that is like, that's a flower or that's a blade of grass, or you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be anything like that, sculptures and things like that. It's looking at it like, wow, that captures the light here, or oh my gosh, that feels so intense, it's coming right at me, or it's just, I think that the art is creating something that makes somebody observe their world differently.
I like that. I like that. That's pretty good. I'm going to definitely save that for the YouTube Shorts section.
Okay.
And so, where can people find your work?
Well, I'm developing that a little bit more because, again, returning to art, and then this is completely new for me to be put out there in the public. So my art can be found on my Instagram. It's Promise Harmony _art. I'm Steffany Latronica on Facebook. I haven't opened like an art Facebook page yet, but that's in the works. I'm also going to be opening a TikTok, so I'll post that on my Instagram. And let's see. Well, I'm gonna have a show. I'm gonna have a show this May at Chrysalis Gallery. So
Awesome. Love Chrysalis.
yeah. So yeah, they're awesome people. I met DJ, and she's just an amazing person. So yeah, come and see in May, second Saturday.
Awesome.
Second,
No,
oh my God.
second Saturday. Because, yeah. So originally it was the first Friday thing, so they're trying to do the second Saturday.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
All right. It was great having you on, Steffany. Thank you for joining me for the podcast.